The building segment because there's some gravel, driveways, and parking. 216 West.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight for this special meeting of the Tahlequah City Council. The time is 7 o'clock. The date is Monday, August 17th. We'll get this meeting called to order and ask for a roll call from the clerk, please.
Councilor Weston. Here. Councilor Carroll.
Here.
Councilor Hires.
Here.
Councilor Bliss.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Item number 3 is the public comment section. Comments will be accepted from the general public concerning topics that are not included in the meeting's agenda. Individuals will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time, and the cumulative total of all comments from the public shall not exceed 15 minutes. Preference will be given to Tahlequah citizens, and in compliance with the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act, no action or discussion is permitted by the City Council on any issue or topic raised by the speaker during this public comment period. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak during this open session? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, which is a public hearing. We'll need to have a motion to enter into the public hearing to discuss changing the scope of the 2013-2014 CDBG Small Cities Grant Project from the remodel of the community building to demolition of the existing structure and construction of a pavilion with restrooms. Councilors? So moved. We have a motion to enter into a public hearing. Is there a second? You have a second. Councilor Bliss, or give us a roll call, please.
Councilor Carroll.
Yes.
Councilor Hires.
Yes.
Councilor Bliss.
Yes.
Councilor Weston. Yes. Motion carried.
We are now in a public hearing to have some discussion upon the change of scope to what we have referred to in the agenda item as a community building, but it's not the community building that everyone knows by that name. It's actually what we've been colloquially calling the green building at the intersection of Morgan and Water Street. There's been a significant amount of discussion over a period of 3 years about the shape and form that this project should take. Most of it is centered around keeping the building intact and remodeling it extensively. Here late in the game at the 11th hour, there have been a few people try to suggest that we actually abandon that plan and do something entirely different, including open air concepts. What we had done, staff contacted the Oklahoma Department of Corrections and had some conversations with them. I always do that. I see the letters in my head, Oklahoma Department of Commerce, and we had some conversations about extending the deadlines and some of the flexibility we may have when it comes to changing the scope of this project. It turns out that we do have the ability to not spend this money by October and instead extend that deadline into July of next year, where all of it has to be spent for loss. So it gives you some time to consider things, but we're hoping that some resolution can be brought to this. A final decision, which we thought we had months ago, could be reached on what shape this building should take, or no building at all, or whatever it is you see fit to do. Tonight, the change of scope will involve changing over to basically a pavilion-based concept that Mr. Bourne is here to tell us about again. And if you don't end up wanting to change the scope to that project, then the intent would be to move forward with the enclosed building as we've been discussing for the past 2 to 3 years. Mr. Bourne, tell us a little about the new concept you've come up with. I don't know if we have any slides this evening or not. Is it all printed material, Mr. Bourne?
It is all printed.
Tonight, all we have is printed material, Mr. Gay, but I promise you can have my copy and I can get another copy from Mr. Bourne at a later date. So.
And I have extras, just not enough for everybody.
Okay, the attorney and I will share. He gives his to Mr. Gay, and we will try to make sure that we get these put out there for people to see them through another medium at some point. Mr. Bourne, the floor is yours.
And so what we did is, after listening to everybody 2 weeks ago, and learning that we did have an extension and that we possibly could change the scope, we talked about what this open air concept might want to be, just briefly with Clint and the mayor. And so we came up with an option, and we did what I would call preliminary cost estimate. Now, again, as you all know, I say this many times, I'm not a cost estimator. However, in this case, I did contact Redstone, who is a construction management firm. We work with them on some of our other commercial projects, and just trying to get some feedback from them for me to know if I'm in the ballpark on this second option. And they confirmed most of my numbers, and then there were some adjustments that we made to make it even more accurate. So the single page that you have is as simple a summary as I could provide you. It has both options, pictures, and then what the cost estimates are currently and the estimated construction schedule. Regarding the schedule, let me briefly say, in either case, we still need to move forward fairly quickly to get this thing designed, and I really think you guys need to be under contract and beginning construction probably no later than sometime in December in order to hit that July deadline. That gives you a little bit of wiggle room in construction if you have bad weather in the winter time. Obviously, if you could, you'd want to start sooner just to be safe, but that's kind of the timeline we're looking at. And so it's my understanding you can choose to change the scope to what we're calling option 2, the open pavilion concept. And we can move forward with design on that, or you can choose not to change scope and we would move forward with option 1. And if I'm not saying that correct, Mr. Mayor, please clarify.
Councilor Carroll, you pulling your microphone down. Do you have a question?
Comment. Anything I have to say about this is a composite of people I know are building trades and graduate OSU building and experience. So I don't really want to make a decision tonight. I'd like to have a chance to consult with knowledgeable builders.
Well, Councilor, we're not asking you to build it.
Yeah.
We're just asking you to try to pick a concept, and hopefully we can move forward with people who would build it.
There's somewhat minor items that feel like should be incorporated in the plan.
Those can certainly be handled as we move through the finalization of the design. Is that correct, Mr. Bourne?
Yes, if there's floor plan changes or anything like that, we can certainly work through that process.
Anyway, well, I think I can live with this with some adjustments. Minor, I mean, not cheap adjustments, but I overall like it.
You live with this being option 2?
Yes, to tear the existing structure down and replace it with this structure.
Well, I believe there'd be is that incorrect? Is it part of it would be salvaged? Is that right? Or is this complete demo? It's a demo, I'm sorry. Okay,
Yes.
then yes, it would be gone and replaced with what you see here in option 2.
That's what I'm looking at.
Okay.
I did have a quick question. Did option 1 include covering the parking lot? Okay, I didn't know about that. When did that come up?
Well, none of this is official and anything can change, as you know. But in our last meeting, or at our last meeting, I thought I heard some people requesting, is there an option to cover that parking lot so that the ice rink in the wintertime could be utilized if there's inclement weather for farmers market and those kinds of things.
It's been brought up multiple times in conversation.
So what we did is we tried to include multiple ideas into the second option, the open air idea, restrooms, covering that, the parking lot are all included in the second option.
Mr. Bourne's done a wonderful job of amalgamating a tremendous number of requests and demands and hints and suggestions and riddles about what this building ought to become. So thank you for all of your work there.
We did even look at, could we put restrooms across the street at the splash pad? And it's my understanding at this time that there are some requirements as to city ownership from the state level. And since, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but since the state does not own that property, it can't be included in a project like this. So hence the restrooms are located at the green building.
It's the city that owns the property, not the state, but yes. The state has concerns that we don't actually own the property.
Well, I'd like to point out to councilors that the estimated costs for both options are over budget. So I believe the prudent thing to do would be to perhaps go with option 2 and then choose which one of the two pavilions we'd rather have.
Which budget are we talking about?
The CDBG grants.
They're beyond the grant money, but we have the money available for either option.
Well, we're at a crossroads in our city finances where if we don't seriously look at our spending practices, we're gonna be hurting in 5 years, Mayor.
I'd heard that we'd be broke by August, and we're not.
Well, no, I don't think we'll be broke by August, but I would feel confident saying 2, 3, 4 years and we're gonna be in trouble.
We'll have to disagree about that.
That's fine, we can.
Councilors, the money exists for either option. Whatever you choose to do, you choose to do nothing at all. Entirely up to you.
At this point, it's just a public hearing for the public to speak.
Oh, that's true. You're
Later
correct.
on.
I apologize. Yeah, later on, we'll actually have that, the action if you take it. Well, councilors, thank you, clerk. There'll be another item before we actually take any action. Does anyone want to speak to this project before we close the public hearing?
What is the budget?
It can be, we've got, I'd have to look back to the spreadsheet. There's $800,000 left in the Greenbelt budget at this time.
That is inaccurate. There's $660,000 left in the Greenbelt budget.
And I'll stand correct.
Approximately $480,000 in grant money
$1 million.
in 2 different grants. No, I'm not wanting to use $1 million.
Right, but I mean, that's what could be used, possibly.
But potentially, yes, but then we're sacrificing other services. So the 2 grants equal about $480,000, and option 1 estimated cost $519,000. Option 2 estimated cost $560,000.
Does option 2 have bathrooms in it?
Yes, sir.
And there are no current bathroom facilities at that park or the splash pad, is that correct?
There's facilities at Norris Park, which is in the vicinity.
That's right, that's right.
Well, one of the, I would just comment on that. One of the reasons why restrooms was an issue is because of the splash pad.
Right.
You know, the bathrooms are so
Yeah,
far away.
I forgot that that one building there on the north is the bathrooms.
Any questions?
Hold on, sorry.
Barlow? Sorry. I really wasn't prepared to comment on this, but as a person who made a living about 15, 16 years running public buildings and having events, catered events and everything, when you open the walls to an event, you take away shelter from the storm and from the heat, and you do away with half people's use when they would like to use a building. If it's going to be open, it's going to be very limited on who can use it, when they can use it. It'll be very specific in what it can be used for. Open air activities. Anybody that wants walls, whether it's heat or air conditioning going on,
We
they're not
also
going
have
to
to
get it.
think about the cost of utilities and manning and having, you
I
know.
thought I'd just bring it up.
Well, we have discussed that a lot.
You don't limit the use.
And we do also have the AMC that has banquet rooms and facilities there for rent that are.
Well, people are hoping this would be less expensive.
Well, that's one of the cheapest places to rent in town.
Well, the community center?
No, the Armory, the
Okay.
AMC.
Council Carroll.
As far as heating, infrared gas heat can be adjusted on the moment that it's needed and heat only a specific floor area. So you're not heating an entire building 24/7.
If there are any other questions or comments, now's the time. Otherwise, councilors will entertain a motion to close, or excuse me, exit the public hearing. Okay. Well, we have a motion to exit the public hearing. Do we have a second?
I wanted to give something for Melissa.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second to exit the public hearing? Seeing no second, then we can certainly hear yet again from Ms. Harris. Melissa,
No,
again.
I don't have anything to say.
Have you
Option
seen
two.
it? Have you seen it? You always have something to say.
Well, I
There's no
like,
doubt about that.
I like option two, you know that. I didn't know about the pavilion until Friday when I met with Clint about the pavilion over the ice rink. I think that opens up, 44 days of usage rather than the 36, 38 that it tends to be, so.
That would be my only question is, because this thing is humongous, to cover just a parking lot. Is it worth, from your perspective, working, in downtown Main Street, where's Drew?
He's behind the camera. He can't see him to the left.
That would be my question. This concept right here is what I had been thinking about for the last 3 years.
Yeah, me
What
too.
you and I had talked about, and, and some of the other people, Drew, we talked.
Is it open
Yes.
It's open.
underneath? There's no poles?
Yeah.
Clear span.
Okay.
If I may.
You want to see it?
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Gay?
think everybody needs to see
We've
it.
got a building down there that's been unused and is slowly deteriorating for several years now. And the city is obligated to maintain it in one form or another. This set of plans that you so generously shared with us out here, I think it's an excellent utilization of that piece of property. The only place you really need to heat is in the restroom area. And that can be done very easily with the, putting your heat strips in the floor with a 5-gallon water heater. You know what I'm talking about, radiant heat. That's the only place you need heat 24/7. So my thought on it is, I think it's an excellent idea, we should go forward with it.
And you're talking about option number 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councilors, would you like to exit the public hearing?
Make a motion to exit the public hearing.
Motion from Councilor Bliss, is there a second?
I'll second.
A second from Councilor Carroll. Call roll.
Counselor Hires,
Yes.
Counselor Bliss.
Yes.
Counselor Weston. Counselor Carroll.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 6 is discussion of possible action to change the scope of the 2013-2014 CDBG Small Cities Grant Project from remodel of the community building to demolition of the existing structure and construction of a pavilion with restrooms. Councilors, we just had a pretty lengthy discussion. This is where the rubber hits the road. What's your preference? Option 1, option 2, no option? It's entirely your call.
Do we actually say, in the motion, do we actually say what option?
I think you need to vote, simply make a motion to change the scope of the project as listed in the agenda item should be sufficient. If that's what you're choosing to do.
Right, so we don't have to state which option.
No, if we don't change the scope, it goes on as an enclosed structure. If we change the scope, it's a pavilion.
I'll make that motion.
I make a motion that we change the scope of the 2013-2014 grant. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilor Weston. Any questions or comments? Clerk call the roll.
Excuse me, Counselor Bliss,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Counselor Weston,
Yes.
Counselor Carroll.
Yes.
Counselor Hires,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 7 is discussion and possible action to approve resolution number 81715 in support of the North Highway 82 construction alternative. Mr. Lindsey, we had you here last meeting, excuse me. Tell us a little bit about your concerns with the project, and you've got a resolution, I suppose, with the one that was left in front of us this evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council, for giving me the opportunity to bring this matter before you all. I was looking at those plans for the pavilion, and pavilion's been a great spot for pigeons. Good maintenance. Whatever you do, it's gonna be great for Tahlequah down there in that park, because everybody does have a good time down there. I also wanted to thank the concerned citizens and the local, county, and state leadership for their time and efforts to once again ask the Oklahoma Department of Transportation to to reconsider their chosen Route 1A to align State Highway 82 in North Tahlequah and Cherokee County. As Mr. Boatwright and Commissioner Hubbard had emphasized, this action and our concerns are not about any one particular tract of land or area, but the future environmental and economic growth of this whole area. The chosen Route 1A was basically decided by the interests of those not even residing in this area. They won't be driving that road daily. They won't be maintaining the safety considerations imposed on this rural area with 6 additional intersections. Our sheriff's department and city police will though. They really don't care about our tax base that supports our county and city government, because all those will be reduced because of the additional plan they're to be taking, because it doesn't affect their budgets. ODOT's chosen Route 1A totally changes the dynamics of Tahlequah's comprehensive planning model without any positive benefits to Tahlequah's future development. What a majority of the citizens in North Tahlequah and everybody, 100% of the people that I have visited with, would like to have major improvements, such as the alternate 9 improvements, as we have detailed in the resolution before you, that were brought up at the ODOT open house meeting held last January. But they want major improvements that stay with the existing alignment of 82 in helping to improve the safety and congestion along that route. It's already our main traveled way. People are used to it. Don't go disturb all of our neighborhoods with this type of traffic noise and pollution. We want this highway to be a convenient, equitable, healthful, efficient, and attractive northern gateway into our community that says, you're here, Tahlequah, capital of the Cherokee Nation, a historic place in Oklahoma's history, and we call it home. Please approve and sign this resolution. It may be our city's last opportunity to have a meaningful role and to make a difference in letting the Oklahoma Department of Transportation know that we want this project to complement the planned growth of our community and not destroy it. Any questions?
Council, any questions, Mr. Lindsey?
The county commissioners, what's their stand? You would say what the county commissioner's stand is on this?
You heard the county commission, the chairman, talk at the last meeting, and they're in favor of the existing alignment as well.
And do they plan to submit something also?
More than likely, yes.
Do you feel
Thank
like
you,
the
Dan.
timing is important with?
Timing is extremely important. You all have the Division I chief engineer here, and he is probably going to tell you his thoughts on it, or have his assistant tell his thoughts on it. So I think timing is extremely important. Again, it's not too late now, regardless of what anyone says, until dirt starts being thrown or right of way starts being purchased. We need to make a decision that will, again, complement our community and not just go ramshot through the middle of all of our residential neighborhoods up there in the north part of town. So, thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis?
Mayor, I don't know whether you've opened this for comment for the audience, but I just hung up the phone as I came in the meeting about 15 minutes ago, talking to Doug Hubbard. For those of you that don't know, Doug was recently diagnosed with cancer and was admitted to Tulsa Hospital and had surgery. And he told me he would have been here tonight, were it not for the fact that he just got out of the hospital last night. And he did tell me, well, I don't know.
Please, even though you don't really need it, go ahead.
I'm unaccustomed to public speaking. I'm just up here to bring you some information. But Doug did inform me that his intention as chairman of the county commissioners, and with the attitude that all the county commissioners have exhibited, that they are going to submit a singular resolution with language that would be compatible with what Jim Lindsey is bringing you tonight. And while I'm here, let me say this. I hope it's germane. It is very germane. Okay. I currently live on property that was bought, paid for by my family in 1952. So I feel like I have just about as much dog in the hunt as anybody. But in concert with the remarks that Mr. Lindsey made, I don't think the highway department has the same motives that we, the people in this room, have. They don't have the dollars invested. They don't have the commitment that you, as public servants, when you ran for office and you were voted in by the public to serve the best interest in this town. And you're going to be looking at a resolution that's going to, in fact, destroy some of the roots of this town and the planning that happened years ago. So I found out about this meeting 30 minutes ago. And I heard through the shower, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I'm for Jim Lindsey, and I have not seen this. But I do know that there's going to be a mistake made if this project is allowed to go through as it has been submitted and basically just stuck down our throat. You can do something about it. Whether there's anything changed by what you do about it, but you can let the public who you serve know whose side you're on and that you are looking after the public.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Davis.
for allowing me those comments.
If I may,
Mr. Gay?
I drove that highway when it was gravel, before it even had a designation. We were going section lines from here to Locust Grove. What we have now is tremendous improvement, but it was not the original plan. The original plan is about where 1A is at this point. To go in and tie in with Gideon hill out there. And because of political pressure, they stayed with the old one. For one thing, they run short on money. To redo what is in existence, to upgrade it, is gonna cost more than putting the new road in. Now, I will agree with you to a point. The terminus on this end needs to be farther north. Needs to be up there by the log store. And then head out cross country from there. But as far as going up all, the Moody corner down there, it's been a dead man's corner for a long time. This 4-lane thing was on the books over 20 years ago that I'm aware of. So if we could move the terminus on this end farther north to where the log store is up there, I don't know the name of the road, and take off from that point. Mostly you're talking about pasture land up through there. You get away from your commercial base, you don't disturb it, and you got a better compromise than what 1A is at this point and what you're projecting at that point. So you've got a middle ground there. What do you think?
The thing about that maybe had been the original plan 60 or 70 years ago. The difference is whether they had money or not, that route wasn't built. And now the whole area has developed where commercial areas want that to stay commercial areas. And the residential areas that have been built over there do not want another highway meandering through their area. The route that you're talking about is alternate 9 plus alternate 3, adding alternate 3 to it. Alternate 3 still, again, yeah, that's gonna make sure my property's good, but I'm not here just for my property. I'm here for those neighborhoods out there that are gonna have a 4-lane highway going right next to their addition. And alternate 3, the one you're proposing, takes you back to that original layout, goes right through those neighborhoods now. And it's just really unfair to totally change that around. The people that have already lived next to the highway, it won't be any worse for them because they're already used to being next to the highway. But you get around Megan Estates and those areas around Rice Road, you're gonna have a brand new 4-lane highway with trucks blowing down through there, emergency vehicles coming through there in the middle of the night. And it's just be chaos over there for those folks. It's just not the way Tahlequah has been developing, the comprehensive layout of that. Alternate 9, by the way, addresses that curve you're talking about with a 65-mile-an-hour curve, a very nice curve If you've seen some of the curves, south of Wagner on Highway 69, that's how they fix them. They're real nice, you barely have to turn the steering wheel to get around the curves. They're nice curves. ODOT does a super job in building their highways now, I believe. And I've driven a lot of them, the old ones and new ones. But that's the same thing that the county commissioners are concerned about, is that all the movie folks that are coming down now are gonna be blocked off from having to do what, to get on there and go to the north or to the south. They're gonna be blocked off. They're gonna have to take another side road, which would be the old highway if they choose alternate 1A. And we just think, leave it where it is. There's a whole lot less right of way that's gonna be taken.
Well, to start off with, the state's proposing 2-lane with a 4-lane, right of way. No one proposing putting in 2 lanes.
Exactly, and that's what the resolution proposes
You
as
were
well.
saying 4-lane, 4-lane, 4-lane.
No.
This is a
Well,
misnomer.
you're exactly right, but alternate 9 is a 4-lane, is a 5-lane to Jones Road, Steely Hollow Road. 5-lane to there. That's the worst intersection on this whole thing. That's where most of the deaths happen, there in Woodard Road, those intersections. Okay? So we're not gonna change that. What we're gonna do is create 6 more intersections along the 1A and have whatever's gonna happen on those intersections instead of just improving those 2. So let's get the 5-lane past the danger areas, then go back to the 2-lane. The resolution says that.
Well, what I'm proposing is going north of the commercial area up there, which is a log store. That's the end of the commercial area.
That's alternate 3.
Jerry, we've got a resolution in front of us that has got a couple of proposals in it for 1A and 9. And I think that Mr. Lindsey's spoken to those.
Yes.
We do want to hear from the people from the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Mr. Saliba, would you like to come up and take some time at the microphone and tell us a little bit about the selection procedure that you went through at ODOT?
Thank you. Thank you all for your time. What I feel like my role here, I work local, I'm the division engineer out of Muskogee, and we handle the East Central 8 counties. When I heard about the possibility of a resolution to reconsider or look at additional, the overwhelming thought I had was, well, is the council well informed on the details? There's been a lot of research, data collection going on, 2 public meetings, and I don't know how engaged you have been as a group or individually. So I thought maybe to help you make a decision in this regard was to reach out to you to help you access that information. I don't know what the environment should be or whatever, but I do hope that you're well engaged and have a handle on all of the parameters that went in that came up with the preferred alignment. So I guess I'm here just simply to offer that service so you can make a well thought out decision on it. And the timelines are yours. The timelines are yours. We'll try to accommodate with every ounce of energy that we have.
Councilor, do you have any questions of Mr. Saliba?
Well, one comment I wanted to make is, I did not have the opportunity to attend the public meeting, but I understood that at the public meeting that the public really didn't speak, that they were just allowed to write a comment. Is that correct or not?
Council, there were 2 different formats. The first public meeting where there was time provided for public input at that time, and it was a very useful public meeting because that led to kind of a phase 2. And that was concentrating on detailed analysis on the alignments that were more either on or close to the existing alignment. The net result of that was pretty thorough analysis. I think there was 12 different alignments. The second public meeting was it was an open forum. And that's where we had the detailed aerial with each one of the alignments, and it's complicated. The subject matter is complicated. But the people could walk around and they could pinpoint their areas concerned specifically. And as far as the staff there that could comment on it, we had quite a few people there. So when people had a question, they didn't have to look around for somebody to get answers to their questions. Now, the feedback that I got was, because they're 2 different styles of public meetings. I think they're both equally effective, and that's just information transfer. There was a few people that actually told me that they didn't like that forum. But on the other hand, as with life, there was quite a few that said they really, really valued that format. So that may have been the difference. Does that explain it?
Yeah, well, all I can tell you is that as a counselor, you know, to me, I look at my job as sort of being the voice of people that I represent. And as far as people telling me what they like or what they don't like, I haven't had anybody come to tell me that they like alternate route, number one. You know, they've been very, very specific that they wanted a specific alternate route number 9, and I sure am not the expert on this. I mean, you can sit here all day long and tell me all the details, and I probably still wouldn't understand it, but I know that the people live in that area. Nobody's told me that they like ODOT's first.
And that's very, very important. One of the conclusions to the analysis was that the majority of the comments favored 1A. Are those the ones that reached out to you? It doesn't sound like it.
Councilor Carroll.
It's a basic fact that you get over 60 years old and the bones of your neck tend to solidify. You have numerous non-90-degree intersections. How do you address those angle intersections? Are you going to put an S curve so that you do have a 90-degree at each approach, such as up at Grandview Road? And since that's been put in, we've had numerous accidents at that place. Check the records. So with a 90-degree intersection, that is an S turn coming into it, but still it has many accidents. So I feel like that with that S curve approach, you're not giving enough approach clear, stiff neck clearance.
Yeah, any designer would be hesitant not to really look hard at a 90-degree approach. Would warrant some realignments on the local roads. That's a statement of fact. But the benefit from not having a skewed intersection from a collision analysis far outweighs the alignment, which would probably include an S curve. So we're data driven, and the designers have their design criteria to adhere to.
Yeah, this is exemplified also in the east bypass on Boone Street, northbound and turning to the west. It's very poor alignment on that engineering because you wind up in the bar ditch if you take a normal turn.
Hard for us to correct the mistakes of 1984, but we'll see if we can.
Still driving.
Yeah.
Again, just in summary, if that's possibly of interest to you, we avail our services there. I'm not here to be argumentative, out of respect to your time. You know, the data is complicated. I mean, it's going to take a little bit to share that with you, even in a concise manner. And again, the goal was simply, this is significant. This project is so much needed, and nobody in the public environment or the feedback that I got said highway improvements not needed. You know, we need to get it done to save injuries and save lives.
Highway improvements are definitely needed on that stretch, and I was nearly broadsided at Grandview Road. And I did attend the January meeting, and I submitted comments that I did not see reflected in the summary that y'all typed up after that meeting. And my concern was the intersection of Wheeler and State Highway 82. We're gonna have 5 roads coming in there. And I just don't see how you're really concerned with safety when you're creating an already hazardous intersection and making it more hazardous.
Down Grand, the south end?
Yes. No, I'm sorry, the north end of Grand, Wheeler, and
South end of the project.
Oh, yeah, south end of the project, I'm sorry, yes.
No reason to apologize.
But very well.
Mr. Davis, very quickly.
Since I invited myself to speak a minute ago, I'm not skilled at public speaking, but I am skilled in dealing with the bureaucracy. I've dealt with it all my life. And I attended those meetings, and there was no opportunity for what you would classify to be a popular vote of the people who attended. Is that correct? There was no vote taken of the people that showed up. It was just chit chat around and you gathered that most people were for it. I talked to Gary, Brother Gay over here is a good friend of mine, and he's made some very good comments. I wish Mike Brown was here because I visited at length with Mike Brown at that last meeting. And he assured me that your study showed that it would be a whole lot cheaper to keep the footprint of the present road and not strike off across country and buy a bunch of whole new property. Is that correct?
There was an estimate on construction on each one of the 12, including construction costs, right-of-way costs, and utility costs. Again, I'm not here to regurgitate the data. If it's appropriate to the council, then I'll yield. My whole role here is to try to provide a service for you so you can make a well-educated
Mike
decision.
Brown is our representative.
Sure.
Everybody in this room knows that. And he has made this his business. And he told me that his research had shown clearly that it would be a lot cheaper to keep the footprint of the road that was there. So, again,
Yeah, and I'm not arguing against that, sir.
but the one thing I do want to emphasize, there was no opportunity for a vote of the people and for you to just generally make a comment that most of the people that attended were for the road. I'm for the road.
No,
But
let
this
me
is
be-
the road.
Respectfully, let me be concise on 2 points. We yearned and depended on the feedback, on the comments. And there was a great turnout on those comments. That is the conclusion that I'm sharing with the group tonight, were the results of that.
This group here tonight does not make decision on comments. They just voted a little while ago on an issue. They either voted up or voted down. That's the American way.
And we have a resolution in front of us that will require a motion, a second, and a vote shortly, and I think they'll give us a good indication as to whether or not they have interest in hearing about data regarding the road, rather than commentary.
I have nothing else to say.
Thank you,
just
Mr.
took
Davis.
the words out of my mouth.
There we go. I want to kick this thing along, and so Councilors Park,
Yeah.
very briefly.
Jim Lindsey, is it fair to summarize that the 2 prevailing choices as far as the road is concerned, one of which starts at or near Wheeler Edition and then angles at approximately a 45-degree angle toward where the road curves to go to Gideon? Is that right?
Alternative 1A starts where the bypass, the Bertha Parker bypass is 4-lane now and goes back into 2-lane. Starts there, and then at that curve, we'll go at a 45-degree angle northwesterly to the Gideon curve or that.
Okay.
That's the diagonal route.
And then the alternative
A is changed to curves to a higher speed type curve and stick with the additional alignment, the original alignment.
as the highway turns westerly by where the thorns live.
As it turns north and turns westerly. And the westerly turn will be a expanded roadway. It's not gonna be that sharp turn that you've got now. It'll be an expanded 65-mile-an-hour curve. The alternate 1A, to answer your question, Spearman, this is the study that we got at the open house. Alternate 1A is proposed, their estimate was $47.7 million for that one. The alternate 9, which goes 5-lane with center turn lane alternating, then the 2-lane is $42.9 million.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsey. Councilors, you've heard from a lot of people this evening.
I would like to make a motion that we approve resolution 08172015 and submit to ODOT within 72 hours of approval.
We have a motion from Councilor Bliss. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Weston. The only other comment that I would make is, and Councilor Carroll, I was glad to hear him bring this up. I hope we can have an amended motion. We're not entirely, if I can find it. Councilor Carroll, can you help me find the word?
Therefore, it's all 3rd line down.
Therefore, is all 3rd line down. There was a demand somewhere in here that seemed rather undiplomatic.
No, they took that out.
They did, okay, is that why I can't find it? Okay, the original.
There is no demand. Basically, we're just requesting and stipulating to the Department of Transportation.
So there was a revision according to the first one that we have. Okay.
So we're talking about the two-pager?
Yes. Those are the two pager that is in front of us this evening.
Okay.
Okay, Councilor Carroll and I are satisfied on that count, and we have Mr. Saliba.
What is it? The subject matter of the resolution?
Basically to say it is requesting that the Oklahoma Department of Transportation change the proposed state highway 82 from alternate 1A to alternate 9.
Okay. All right. Is it a done deal?
Not yet, but it sure appears like it's getting ready to be.
Respectfully, does somebody on the council have familiarity with the projected crash data? Does the council have any familiarity with the number of relocations that your people's houses, comparatively speaking, that you're considering here?
Well, that's my only question, is when I'm looking at this, you talk about residential relocations, and on 1A, the data that I have says 5, and on 9, it says 18. And I wonder where those 18 are. Are they those in the city? Is it like with the Wheeler edition, basically from Wheeler to the Spur? Or
broad brush, and again, in a more appropriate environment for education, we have the aerials, and you can actually see the homes, and that's what was presented on the easels.
Right.
All right, and I don't want to be argumentative, and I clearly don't want to be disrespectful, but there's a lot of implications into what you're asking here. Now, if you want us to look at another alignment that may fit your expectation and those kind of things, what you're proposing here just makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Not necessarily for the resource consumption. We want to deliver the project, and we will do that with every ounce of resources that we have, because improving that is the goal. Reducing injuries and fatalities is the goal. But I just plead with you to make sure that you understand the details as they were presented, so then you can make a more informed decision on all the implications,
Being this is outside the scope of the city, which this is not within the city limits.
Roughly 20% of the project, if I remember correctly. If incorrect me, I'm doing a lot of things on the fly tonight with my memory, but 20% or so? Okay, is inside the city.
Go back to my question though, because it wasn't really answered.
When I broad brushed it, and I apologize for that, sir, a lot of the residents are close to the highway.
Right.
So any type of improvement to meet the minimum design requirements, they're not optional. We have to do it. This whole process is under federal purview, and it should be. Those proximity issues, because 5-lane is a wide footprint, and then you have either the curb and gutter, and I don't know specifically which one you're looking at. But the curb and gutter was one of the options. And then we also looked at an open section with the ditches, and that footprint results, and also we are required statutorily to accommodate public utilities, that you're very familiar with.
Well, it was the proposal 9, and it just strikes me weird. It says 18 residential relocations, but it says 0 commercial relocations.
Steve, we've got our Councilor Hires. Let me help you with that. Okay, there are 5 residential homes to be taken with alternate 1A.
Right.
Alternate 9 it shows 18, but some of them have already been dismantled because they weren't there. Some of the other ones are kind of dilapidated. They're older structures and things like that along the west side of the highway is what this is gonna take care. The reason there were no commercial entities on that side when this was done, the other entities like the Amish restaurant and all, and the log store and all that will not be affected whatsoever. So, by alternate 9.
Okay. Well, that's just what, my main concern, my main issue here was, I didn't know where 18, I know there's a church kind of there, and then I know there's the log store, the Amish restaurant, and I didn't know there were any houses that are closer to the highway than any of those.
No, they're on the west side. There's an addition at the top of the hill there. They will take the 4 houses there right there. Those first 4 houses will have to go. Okay?
Councilor Carroll, you've got a question?
Trying to, comment, there's 2 new commercial businesses been built since this plan was put out. There's also 1 new commercial Dollar General store that's on the west side. Otherwise, it is all residential on the west side. And that's where I would explain to Steve there. And the other comment, you mentioned the fatalities. Look at the reason those fatalities occurred. 3 fatalities at the north end, drunk driver. 1 at the little bridge there, horse in the middle of the road at 3 o'clock in the morning. And others down at the Wheeler Edition, I'd say inattention, people my age driving. And then going into town. I put 30 years on the fire rescue, and I've made a lot of accidents down there. So the positive factor of the accidents needs to be considered.
Councilor Hire, also, one of the things is the other alternates, other than the ones that stay with the existing highway, will go by new developments with newer homes, younger families and all that kind of stuff. So I think the trade-off there by staying with the existing highway, pardon me, is do we clean up the west side of the existing highway with this and go ahead and stay away from the newer homes, the newer developments and things, which is going to impact more people with that type of development than it would on the highway, where they're already used to that.
Councilors, we have a motion and a second. We've had plenty of comments. So you've got a standing invitation for Mr. Saliba to hear more data from the Oklahoma Department of Transportation's perspective. I'm sorry.
My only other comment is if this does pass.
Here is the data right here. This is the data.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. My name's spelled wrong, and I'd like.
We won't even bother with amending the motion. We'll take care of that within the 72-hour deadline that we have given. Can't clerk call roll, please.
Councilor Weston? Yes. Councilor Carroll?
Yes.
Councilor Hires?
Yes.
Councilor Bliss?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Mr. Lindsey, Mr. Saliba, thank you very much for your comments and for being here this evening. We'll move on now to item number 8, which is discussion of possible action on an appeal to the August 3rd, 2015 Abatement Board decision to demolish mobile homes located at 1203 West Keetoowah in the Greenvalley Mobile Home Park. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. If I might, I will pass out receiver's appeal. I'm here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, with David Rhodes, who is the court-appointed receiver in regards to this property, and going to do most of the talking. I am local counsel in this matter, but I'm important in hearing water. There is a lawsuit pending in regards to this property CJ 15-18 again. By court order, Mr. Rhodes has been appointed as receiver. Mr. Harris has a copy of pertinent documents from that particular court case, and with that, I'll thanks over to David.
Mr. Rhodes, tell us a little bit about your appeal.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I found out on Thursday that these mobile homes that I'm currently responsible for are slated for demolition within a certain period of time. We talked to the city staff that was in charge of that, and what we felt like was the most appropriate was to ask for a little bit of time to determine whether, number one, those homes can be rehabilitated, or whether they're just so gone that we won't be able to do that. And at that point, the abatement is appropriate. And in fact, I've said in the report that I'll, if given a little bit of time, I'll be back in front of you and either agree or disagree. And if I disagree, I'll want to be able to give you evidence that we do believe that they are habitable that we can fix them within the dollars associated. The owner of the property, the fee owner, is located in Colorado. The prior owner is also not a resident of Oklahoma. And so they really, it appears to me that they haven't spent and reinvested in these 4 trailer parks. And this is not the only one. I have 4 of them. I don't just have the one that we're talking about associated with the abatement. The other one, there's one other in the city of Tahlequah. There are 2 others that are over in the Park Hill area. So what we're doing is at this point, cleaning them up. We're using the rents and the leases to reinvest and try to make it better. They're a devil of a mess. I mean, a lot of trash, a lot of folks that are squatters that are staying there without appropriate leases. They're not paying. We're taking care of all that. Mr. Moore is helping me make sure that we treat the people appropriately, but they're not going to be able to stay for free. It's kind of a trite comment, but if they don't pay, they don't stay. And as a receiver, I work for the courts. I don't work for the folks that own it. I don't work for the creditors. My job is to do objectively what needs to be done to make sure that the people that are there are being taken care of, which is what we're doing. So my request to you all is to not act on the request for abatement, but rather give me 120 days to figure out what I've got, and then either come back to you and say, sure, they need to be demolished, or here's my plan, or here's what we've done in the interim. So that's hopefully very simply what I'd like.
Council, you've heard the explanations from Mr. Rose. You've got a recommendation from the Abatement Board for demolition. What's your pleasure? Do you have any questions of Mr. Rose?
Mr. Rose, we've gotten into this before where we've granted extensions on these and they simply just don't pan out for us. And I believe I'm in favor of leaning towards giving you an extension, but I believe 120 days is just simply too long.
And that's fine. At this point, since I come in with not a great deal of data, because again, I found out on Thursday, so I wanted to get it to you and at least appropriately try to define it for you. That's fine. If it's 60 days, but I've at least got to get my arms around what I've got. And for the last 60 days, we've been trying to clean it up and take care of the immediate problems. And there's no additional funding available. It isn't like you've got an owner who would be able to invest equity. If I did it, I would have to go to the courts. I'd have to ask the judge for the ability to borrow money to do that. And that would probably, with my experience, be resisted aggressively by the people that are there. So I know from my standpoint, we just need to do what's right. We need to make sure that the citizens of the city and the county are not living in squalor. And that's exactly what I found. And it's better today, but it needs to be better still, or they need to be demolished. I don't disagree. Those are tough. The ones in this part are substantially worse than a couple of the others. So I'm surely not arguing that they're nice places for folks to live. They're
Not
couple of them
good.
horrid.
Sure.
Some of them are horrid. So, yes.
Councilor Carroll?
Have you had any experience of remodeling, improving a mobile home?
Sadly, I have. This is the fourth mobile home park that I have been appointed to be responsible for. One in Tonka City, one in Guthrie, one in Tulsa, and then this one in Alabama. So it's a job.
Do you feel like you can get funding to begin?
The advantage that I have is that I have 4 parks, of which one of them is 87% occupied. Therefore, I'm taking the rents, and I got 4 pockets that have money in it, and I'm trying to spend intelligently. And again, I'm not saying at all that I would not agree with your compliance folks and say that they need to not be demolished. I just need a little time to make sure it's a smart decision for me.
I think we need to, personal opinion, extend some time, but not 120 days. Cut it in half at least.
How long has this been in process with the abatement board?
We're in 45 days right now.
How long?
Approximately 45, 50 days.
45, 50 days?
He's just been appointed, when, the 15th, you said?
I was appointed in April, but I didn't get notice until Thursday.
Congratulations.
It was 13th, I think. And Mike, we
one-
visited
yeah.
and, you know, he finally found me. And that's one of those things that as a receiver, you know, we try not to be out there. You know, it's better to do it behind the scenes than to throw up a sign and say, guess what, a receiver's been appointed here. Sometimes that's an absolute death knell.
Counselors, what's your pleasure?
I'd just
Mr.
like
Gray.
to ask Mr. Gray a couple of questions. First of all, I really, really appreciate you submitting these pictures. This makes a huge impact when we actually get to see the pictures. My other question is when you sent out notification of the abatement 45 days ago, did that go directly to the owner of the property and did they
That's
receive?
what's on the county tax paperwork.
Okay,
That's by state law. That's what I have to send
right.
to.
And does that go by certified mail?
Yes,
So you know they received it?
yes. I have, nobody's received anything. It's just been returned. The mail's been returned, but back to me.
Oh, it's been returned. Oh, okay. So you don't know if the property owner was actually even notified?
No, I know they wasn't because, I mean, the mail's just been returned back to me. Nobody's receiving anything. Nobody's signing.
Did you also physically post the
Yes.
location?
Yes.
So there's signage placed, there's letters
Posted
sent.
two different ways, one by certified mail and the other one by posting the property itself.
One of the things we will make sure, now that we know about it, we will not only tell the owners what's going on, notify them, but we will, for the prior owners who hold the mortgage on it, we're gonna notify them also. So we will, once we kind of get our arms around it, we find out where you guys are going with it, we'll make sure that they know what's going on. And we can get over it.
I mean, sorry, I talked over you.
Normally wise, probably do a better job of sharing things. Go ahead, Doc.
Place this on the agenda 30 days from now and reevaluate it. Is that possible?
If you want to make that in the form of a motion, but I would hope that we have a very bad habit of being vague and specific, and they'll get another 30 days and they come back in 30 days. I would hope that this would be not a reevaluation, but simply a deadline.
Deadline to show progress, sufficient progress to change your minds from,
So a reevaluation,
Also, Mayor, when he says 30 days,
it'd be the next,
that may be Wednesday.
next council meeting.
sure. We'll clear that up with the mid-month meeting in September or whatever.
Yeah.
I also
Meeting
believe
on a
that
Sunday.
there's no permits that was required for the mobile home parks either, and hadn't been for a while.
It's obvious the owners don't care.
I mean,
Whether you contact them or not, they don't live here.
exactly, and I respect your wanting to look at but based on these pictures, I mean, I think you'd have to be a miracle worker to do something with these homes.
Well, and I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there was an ordinance that said that if a mobile home was not considered to be livable, that it had to be removed.
Clarify that for me, staff, or for the counselor.
I don't have the book in front of me.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
But,
I don't think that's the way it's worded.
it's close to that, but I'm not,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't have the book
close.
in front of me, so.
Right.
Basically, would you say that any of these are inhabitable?
So, yes.
Inhabitable, I guess I should say.
I mean, one that looks like maybe a fire happened
Two
in the
are
front.
inhabited.
There's two of
I
them.
might-
There's,
Two of them.
in that
Going
park,
for the ones that are
the trees falling on one of them. I mean, it's.
A couple of them.
Two of them.
five.
The abatement board has made a recommendation, and we have a tendency to go soft. And if you want to make a motion to bring this item back at the mid-month council meeting, we can do that. I would just almost leave it in the hands of the compliance officer to say if it's not brought up to code by a certain date, then we proceed with demolition. There's no reason to keep revisiting these things over and over and over.
But clarify, Mr. Rhodes,
Yes,
you're a
sir.
responsible individual for this park now, is that correct?
I am in my official capacity, yes, sir, I'm responsible for this.
So you feel like in approximately 30 days, mid-month meeting, you could show sufficient evidence that we would lead to believe that it will be demolished or repaired and made habitable?
Doctor, I asked for 120, I heard 60. I can tell you what I've done in 30 days and what's happened, but I'm not going to commit to you that I'll have an answer for all of this stuff. I think that that's somewhat unrealistic, but I definitely want to work with the staff to make sure that we do what we can do. There's just no reason.
And councilors, even if you do something that seems harsh this evening, they still have an appeal avenue open to them in district court. So I would recommend that we back the staff, the abatement board, or leave it in their hands about a certain deadline, and then if that's not sufficient, they can go to district court. That's their next level of appeal.
And I would be happy to make that motion to back the abatement board and to proceed with the demolition.
I believe I had a motion.
Well, we were trying to clarify it, and I'm the one that probably muddied those waters. You had a motion to do what exactly?
Doc, but if I could interject 1 second.
Well, can you tell me what you want your motion to be, or?
Basically, we would have another hearing as tonight, 30 days, have sufficient progress made to satisfy or demolish at that date.
That is awfully vague, but we do have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Okay, do we have a second? Is there a second for Councilor Carroll's motion? Seeing none, we'll entertain another motion, which I assume is going to come from Councilor Hires.
Sure. I would make a motion to agree with the abatement board proposal and to set them for demolish.
For demolition?
Demolition.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second to Councilor Hires' motion?
I'll second.
Second to Councilor Weston. Are there any other comments or questions from the public and council?
Next question, they can go to district court.
Absolutely.
So that would delay any action.
Sure, there'd be, I would assume some type of injunction granted, and it may even just be a part of the appeal process
So
itself.
they can do nothing until this comes up.
Mr. Mayor,
If they chose to do that, yes, sir.
help maybe a little bit in that side. Number one, there is an injunction already in place in the order that it can't be done without approval of the district court. And so that's a piece of it. The other thing that, and I'm fine with that, it makes no difference. The other question though I have is who has to pay for, if you go out and you demolish 18 of the 25 homes that are out there, who pays for that at this point?
The city of Tahlequah would pull it out of its normal budget for these kinds of things, but then a lien would be placed on the property.
Sure. And that then when it was sold, if it's sold, then at that point we do it. But on the short-term basis, the city has to, out of its budget, pay for it. So that's, I was also trying to avoid that.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I would be willing, I mean, we've had this in our windshield, if you will, for 45 days, and I would be willing to allow you 45 days. I understand there's a motion and a second on the floor, and I was at the abatement board meeting. And I just forgot what I was doing.
Well, I tell you what, let's take a vote on the motion that's on the floor, and then if something happens, we can come back and continue to discuss if I remember correctly. Clerk, give us a roll call, please.
Councilor Carroll?
No.
Councilor Hires?
Yes.
Councilor Bliss?
No.
Councilor Weston?
Yes.
Mayor Nichols?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We will begin to investigate the legalities of all the documentation that we have involving those injunctions or your right to appeal, and we'll work forward or work through this as we move forward. So thank you very much.
And I would then deal with the city attorney on that.
There'll probably be some combination between myself, the attorney, the compliance officer, and the assistant city administrator. Yes, sir.
Excellent, thank you. We appreciate it.
Quick note, I always have to write additional notes when there's a split vote. Thank you. Item number 9 is a discussion regarding expansion and upgrade of high-speed internet access for businesses within city limits. Mr. Barlow?
Yeah, I'm gonna be real quick, and I really feel sorry for this is a very difficult process. When I came in last week, I had just given 2 people either notice to quit their job. So when I came in 2 weeks ago, I was a little emotional. There's one thing that's wrong in this, and I'm just gonna mention it. It says business. It says that discussion regarding the expansion and upgrade of high-speed internet for business within the limits of city of Tahlequah. The 10 people that said they were gonna be here tonight aren't here, really, with all their complaints, their Netflix kept stopping. And so they're not here, so it must be difficult to cover. But my situation is I had to tell people to move because I couldn't compete in the marketplace at the speeds that our city. It's basically very similar to having a horse and buggy in a high-speed race. And that's really what it is in fiber optics. And so I know of a company, I came here actually to introduce somebody, which I was told I could do. Big T Telecom, 100-year-old, I think I'm saying it right, correctly, Oklahoma-owned company who they can tell you what they accomplished in Bartlesville and other cities around here. But we really need, there's a lot of people talking about the future and federal this and dollars that and stuff, but we really need help right away. And right away, it's gonna take time anyway. But I know I was sold a bill of goods for the last company. Having said in our meetings, they promised this and promised that. I was sold a bill of goods as a business owner of the last company that hung some fiber around the city and ended up with 1 or 2 big companies and didn't do the rest of us. So I want to just say, I want to introduce somebody here, Scott. And I'm just representing myself and the people that agree with you that aren't here.
Can I ask a very quick question about Scott, what are you going to try to tell us about this evening? Because it's very possible that what you need to say doesn't need to be addressed to city council, but instead would be more appropriate for someone like the Public Works.
Well, the reason we're here is I talked about Public Works, and they said we should come here first.
Well, we may have to respectfully disagree because it's not our polls on which anybody would hang their facilities.
Asked if you could get a representative from CDBG here.
And they
said they would not come.
They just said, maybe not. I'm just telling you, Nichols, I'm not trying to do anything wrong here. I talked to them. No. I talked to them. They're very defensive. We're not wrong. No, we did anything wrong. I didn't say I didn't do anything wrong. We just want to get an answer here, some improvement.
All we're doing is talking about the internet, and nobody did anything wrong. What's the gentleman's name again? I'm sorry?
Scott Floyd.
Scott Floyd?
This is, all I'm trying to say is that I've talked to TPWA. I asked them to be here. They said we should talk to you about it because no sense to talk to them until we talk to you, because in the end, it's up to you, they said.
Well, we'll go with, who knows, chicken or the egg, and we'll hear from Mr. Floyd.
I just want to get some.
What did you do? I really don't have any idea.
I appreciate your time, and I know you're caught unawares here a little bit maybe, but I just want to introduce who I am, who our company is, and just throw out the idea that we might be open to discussing business with the city of Tahlequah. Well, first off, it's BTC Broadband, which is Bixby Telephone Company, a 100-year-old telephone company, privately held, very well established, and we're big community players. We are a telephone and internet broadband provider. There's a competitive side of our business, and that competitive side is expanded up to Bartlesville. We actually had a major anchor account at the hospital there that wanted us to come out, and they also encouraged us, just like we've heard from customers that we have here, that they encouraged us to come and talk to you. Approximately 3 years ago, I entertained coming up here and trying to see if there was an opportunity for business, and that's when I heard that you were entering into an agreement with another company. And I understand that you're still in that agreement. In the event that for some reason that does not work out, I will throw out the invitation right now that we would be happy to come over and work with whoever is appropriate. And the reason why that we would come to the city council to make this offer is because it's a municipally owned utility. You own the poles, and if you're going to come in as a utility, although we might have statewide right to do that, we'd have to work with the city
in order to get the proper approval. We're good corporate citizens. We are the first to provide gigabit internet to our customers in the Bixby footprint. And we have expanded, as I mentioned, up to Bartlesville, over to Okmulgee, to Morris, and looks like possibly Haskell this upcoming year. And we're a going concern. And so I just wanted to introduce myself and throw that out as an option. Here in town, we've got Reesers is one of our customers. And we've been working with their corporate location for what, three years now? 3 years now, right?
So you're currently in Tahlequah?
We currently have customers in Tahlequah, and we have contracted bandwidth to get here, and then we provide our services over that bandwidth. But what we're talking about, if we were to enter into an agreement, would be to construct fiber and operate the broadband.
And build a plant essentially to provide that service. And that's where Tahlequah Public Works is going to be where the.
Understood. Understood.
Council, do you have any questions of Mr. Floyd or Mr. Barlow?
What is the agreement that we're currently in with this other internet provider?
It's Tahlequah Public Works that has an agreement, a pole attachment agreement essentially to allow them to put, I can't remember all the technical specifications of the fiber they pledged, but anyway, a significant number of fiber on poles to try to provide a ring that provide gigabit internet service to businesses around town. So,
And we haven't got it.
and
Only one or
apparently it's
two.
not available yet. And
Yeah, I don't know what the current contract or the current agreement states.
basically that they can put their fiber on poles.
Is it an exclusive agreement? Do we know? It's not.
Not that I recall, and I don't even think you can do such a thing. So, but again, that'd have to be double checked, but no.
So I guess I'm not quite clear as to why Tahlequah Public Works said that we had to make the decision before they would.
They just said if you don't get on board, it won't get done. When I said that I was told 2 years ago I'd get gigabit internet if I supported this company. And then after this long amount of time, last time I contacted them, oh, we won't do it for several more years. And then when I talked to people that said they've lost their federal financing and they're behind on their commitments they've already made, and different people say different things. I was told that best thing to do is come to the city council and make an appeal that something gets done, or we find a new player. We find a new player that will serve the city.
Is there an expiration on the agreement?
I haven't looked at that document in years.
It's not with us, right? It's with TBWA, essentially.
Essentially, yes. There was some action taken by this body around that same time, but there's been a lot of water under the bridge. I'd have to look back at the documents.
That's all we're trying to do. That's all I'm trying to do as a citizen and a businessman is say that, after when you're treading water for a long time, eventually you gotta go, help! We're just saying, help, we can't go forward in this buggy in a Model T Ford, we can't go forward.
It's just that one of the key players are not here for us to be able to ask.
I know, I asked them to come.
Well, we're really spinning our wheels in a difficult form to ever really gain traction, at least at this juncture. Eventually, sure, there need to be some kind of participation by this group, but for now, there's all kinds of chickens and eggs and carts and horses here, but we'll try to work through them eventually. Mr. Floyd, thank you. Ms. Spires, you're standing in the middle of the room. I presume you have something to say.
I do.
I understand Mr. Barlow's frustration. I think it's very real. I was on the Industrial Park Board and the council when rural broadband, which you're alluding to, came to the Industrial Park Board and also to Tahlequah Public Works and the council. I have been in contact with Brad James, who is pretty local, and Roy Choates, who is currently right now in Washington, D.C. And I've had contact with them when I saw that this was on the agenda. And they are expecting the FCC to fund them by the end of the year and continue with the broadband here in Tahlequah. So I just thought I would let you know that.
Thank you, Ms. Spires. Any other questions or comments before we move along, councilors? Seeing none, let's move on then to item number 10, which is discussion regarding the creation of a landscaping ordinance for R2 and R3 properties within the city limits of Tahlequah. Councilor Weston.
Well, as you can see, these are all simply discussion items only. I did make a copy of the proposed ordinance that you gave us. I don't know if you actually presented or just gave it to me a couple of years ago.
I told you last October that this would be your water to carry. We would write it for you, but no way was I going to bring it forward.
And again, this is just discussion only, and based upon the ordinance that you wrote, I don't know where you found this, but you had R1, R2, and R3 on this.
I believe that was what was requested by you at the time, if I remember correctly.
Well, I don't think I would love to see R1, but I know that would be feasible, but R2 and R3 was, do you remember where you got this ordinance from? I mean, it's feasible. I mean, it states this is about new two-family dwelling, so this is new R2 construction and new R3 construction.
It was a request put to me by you, and actually, strangely enough, I think Councilor Spires, and we cobbled it together, and I washed my hands of it after I presented it to you all. I think with a group of about 7 or 8 others, but no, they became your project shortly thereafter. I cannot recall where we pulled it from.
Okay. My only other question is, those of you that have you met with the beautification committee?
Yes, I have.
Have they discussed landscaping ordinances?
No, not this particular topic. No. I mean, some landscaping in general, but nothing as particular targeted as this.
Okay, and my other question is like commercial landscaping now, right? It's a requirement for commercial property.
Correct.
Have you had any problems with that? Do you find that the commercial property owners agree to it?
Yeah, the out-of-town developers usually bring in a landscape plan included in their building plan.
So they're already used to it anyway.
These are new developments,
No, right.
not existing.
No.
Yes.
Right. Which personally, I would like to see it be affect existing R2 and R3, but I don't know. You probably couldn't do that. There'd be a lot of people upset. So again, this is just discussion. A prime example is the duplexes across the street from the Skate House. There's barely a piece of grass. And it just affects, I don't know, this is just me and my landscaping. I know when there were apartments put behind us, there was obviously no landscaping ordinance. You can hear everything. It affects drainage, it affects noise. There's nothing. There's no trees, there's no shrubs, there's no anything behind us except a parking lot and houses. I mean, a parking lot and apartments. So I would just like to see us sort of move forward and be a little more, I don't know, contemporary, I guess, in thinking down the future for landscaping. So my question is what would we need to do as far as actually adopting something such as this that you found for R2 and R3? Do we use what?
Well, just like we had done with the dumpster enclosure ordinance, I don't know if that's, and I think I used this phrase then, I don't know if that's ready for prime time. It's been a while since I've looked at it. It need to be reviewed probably by Park and yourself or any other interested parties to see if it's got all the i's dotted, t's crossed, lowercase j's dotted for that matter. I mean,
Just a
I don't
summary,
know.
just the basics, is this affects new R2. It says, which includes the presence of 4 trees per lot, turf coverage throughout the entire lot except for bedding. After construction of the two-family dwelling is complete, but before occupancy, it shall be unlawful for any developer or property owner to leave any lot associated with any new dwelling without the required number of trees. Existing trees present on the lot shall count as 2 trees, and no new tree should be allowed from the prohibited list of trees.
Okay.
So, and we can't take any action. So my request is this something that I would just present back to you? Or?
If you've got a document in hand, you can present it to the clerk and put it on for discussion if possible. Now, it'd be discussion only one more time, since it'd be a formal proposal at our September meeting on the 8th. And then mid-month September, then people can take action on that ordinance. But just like I did with the dumpster enclosure, I would warn heavily against rash passage. I would give it further study because it's difficult to write an ordinance that you're highly skeptical about, but I managed, I guess is what I'm telling you. Be sure to look through it, make sure it addresses all of your concerns, and make sure that it is technically feasible. And you might need the attorney's help in doing that.
Ms. Weston, could we possibly include these ordinances in the code book review? And then let them.
Well, it wouldn't be an ordinance
have
to
a
be
chance to
reviewed
ask
though.
it. Well, no, but we could include that for possible adoption and see what their recommendations were on.
I can
I'm
also
just
send
throwing
you
it
an
out there,
electronic
but-
copy and you can clean it up and bring it back.
Okay.
Isn't that what I sent you in an email over the weekend, because I saw this on the agenda? So that's a printed copy of what I did last fall. Okay.
Because that still has R1 in it.
So, I'm sorry?
That was from Fayetteville. If I recall right.
Well, we had lots of discussion.
I mean,
But
I may have slapped it on a Xerox machine and given to you that way. I really don't know.
Are you going to include derelict properties in that?
this is.
No, this would be, I believe, again, everything tonight I've been saying is from memory, but I believe it's new development. I believe that's what you requested.
No, I'm sorry, I was looking for that on my phone whenever the beginning of this conversation happened. But we already have an existing landscape ordinance for commercial properties in Tahlequah. So could we not just take that existing ordinance and include R2 and R3?
The more the counselor speaks, the more I think I may have just done a find and replace on commercial, put R1 or R2 and R3 and just said, here you go, Councilor Weston. I think that may be exactly what I did. I honestly think that may be what I did. Now that you say that out loud.
I mean, because we're talking R1 or R2 and R3, but really those are commercial. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're commercial.
There are a lot of commercial
I mean, it's
components to R3.
apartments
for sure.
and it's duplexes, things like of that nature. We can include that into the ordinance rather than create a new something out of the blue.
Like I said, I think I had about a half a dozen or so outstanding requests
Same
for
process.
ordinances at the
Bring
time.
them twice.
And the reason it's probably difficult for me to remember is because I tried to write, I believe, about 5 of those 6 all in one sitting, essentially. And it's just difficult for me to remember what was included in what and where I got what. And I think I shipped them over to you guys in an email. Again, sometime, if I remember the email right that I found, it was last October. Well, Council, there's no actionable item this evening. It'll be up to Councilor Weston to do with as she pleases on the document that I provided from last fall. So unless there's any further comment, we can move on to item number 11.
Again, discussion only, signage ordinance, this is something.
Well, you took off without me reading the item, but it is a discussion regarding creation of a signage ordinance affecting new and replacement business signs, starting at the intersection of Highway 82 and the bypass and going north to NSU. It doesn't bother me, Councilor, but I'm afraid somebody would say that we didn't read the item out loud. Go ahead.
Again, discussion item only. I'm just curious to know what other people feel about trying to implement a signage ordinance that has some amount of consistency and uniformity among like height restrictions. This is the only reason I put this on here is this is the only time we get an opportunity to talk about anything as a group. Signage ordinances?
Yes.
An entire chapter, if I remember correctly.
For height restrictions?
Yeah, what you describe is the highway commercial corridor, the property that is adjacent to the bypass. And the restriction is 50 feet in height, and square footage is like 1,600 per side, 1,600 square feet per side. It's a large sign.
Is there anything in there about the light that the sign
The-
is? I know the one on 51 and the spur is quite bright.
The one that I remember most is if there is flashing that emulates an emergency vehicle, the police chief has the authority to tone it down, make them adjust their sign.
There's a little bit of a difference between a height restriction, but the other would be the brightness of the LED signs.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they go pure white or pure yellow, it's hard to see.
Blue red.
Well, maybe there are different versions of colorblindness. White and yellow get the name.
Yeah, but if it flashes and it may look like an emergency vehicle, the police chief has the authority to change
Right
it.
now it's
Yes.
50 feet.
For the highway commercial corridor. There's also a commercial corridor. And
the Board of Adjustment can make certain alterations. The council has made certain alterations in the past to allow things to go higher, or be slightly larger based upon some extenuating circumstances, so. But generally speaking, those ordinances are what they are. They do exist.
Mayor,
Council Attorney,
is there an
or
ordinance?
excuse me, Mr. Attorney. I almost did it twice tonight, sorry.
Is there an ordinance now for the removing old signs?
There is, and we're pretty hip deep into the middle of a few of those issues at the moment. Yes, sir.
About 3 years, or maybe longer than that, Bandino sign has been up down there.
Yeah.
And I've tried to get that taken down and without any success.
Well, we're probably going to move forward and rely on Park Skill to make sure that we don't all go to jail. But, yeah, so maybe that should be, have some action.
There is a legal problem.
There is, but we're going to be bold and see if we can get that taken care of.
My only other comment on the signage is, could we amend the current ordinance that discusses commercial signage to lower the height requirement? I'm just thinking that when we start doing construction, most of those signs are gonna have to come down and be replaced, will they not?
Oh, on South Muskogee?
Right.
There's quite a few of them that could come down today because.
What I was discussing was off-premise signs, billboard signs. Those aren't allowed anymore on South Muskogee. It's considered the scenic byway.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about off-premise on South Muskogee. But on-premise, there are, and I'm not as familiar with the height regulations. I think it's 30 feet.
I believe it is. Don't hold me to that either.
And the square foot of their sign, the face, is determined by the frontage, street frontage, linear distance that they have. So.
Okay. Can I just get with you and we'll talk?
Sure,
then?
absolutely.
To answer your question, there are a lot of signs that are currently in the existing right of way, a few more that'll be added to it once we expand on that. Well, no, I apologize, I think only one. And again, don't hold me to this, I mean, I'm pulling from the deep recesses of my memory. One, maybe two will enter the right of way, once we go get that little sliver that we need on that northeast side.
Again, I always compare when I go to other cities and I see other cities that, they're like 10 feet tall and they're all the same. It just makes such a huge difference. And I just think now is sort of opportune time to address that.
You can get rid of the truck stop by, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll just get with you. And Mayor, at my request too, I would like to, I don't know if the correct terminology is at table item 12 and item 13.
I tell you what, it's on the agenda, but what we can do is we can read it out loud and simply take no action.
No action.
Well, Park, is there a mechanism? We've never been asked to simply skip an item. Do I need to read it or can we just simply, okay. If at your request, since you were the submittee, we can simply skip along on suspend the agenda and simply not take any action or go through items 12, 13. That gives us to item then, unless anyone wants any other further comment on item 11, then we will proceed to item number 14, which is discussion and possible action to approve resolution number 08-17-15B to execute the Safe Route to School project agreement with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Marcie's not with us this evening, but I have a feeling Mr. Johnson can explain to us the need for this.
Yeah, so they're granting us money. There's not a match. This is just saying that we are going to play by their rules that they've set forth. We're going to hire an engineering company. They're going to design it. We're going to go out to bid. We're going to go through the process, how they have set it up. So we're agreeing to use their money the way that they want us to for the projects that we select.
So the city is not out any money. It is grant money coming from somewhere else.
100% grant money.
And you never really count that as out of the city's coffers when you receive grant money from somewhere else.
I agree, there are many routes. Many routes.
So my only question is, I mean, Park, I guess it's the Park, have you've been through this and there isn't anything?
Well, there's a stipulation that if we don't do it to their standard, not that
We don't get it.
but we have to make sure it's to their standard or we don't get the money back. So basically, we're gonna put the money up front. We're gonna get reimbursed once they say, okay, here's the check off.
That's the way I understand it.
100% reimbursable.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be running for sanitary next
I move we accept the resolution or whatever. We have a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Have a second from Councilor Bliss. Write that down. My notes up for some reason. Clerk, give us a roll call, please.
Councilor Hires,
Yes.
Councilor Bliss.
Yes.
Councilor Weston. Yes. Councilor Carroll.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 15 is to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll say.
Yes. Second from Councilor Weston. Clerk, give us a roll call.
Councilor Bliss.
Yes.
Councilor Weston. Yes. Councilor Carroll. Councilor Hires.
Yes.
Let's make this one.
We still get 2 hours.
You know, I'm kind of into having what I'll probably do is moving. I am literally so flat-footed.
He never had one.
See
you, Les.
Well, it's been down. It's done from second. Been down to that office.
I tell you, the website, once you start using it, it's good to, so you get your keyword that you're looking for something, put it in the search bar on our website. It takes you to that section. Then you go to the book and get the whole picture. So you can kind of turn the pages and see. But the website is great. And you go get through it through our City of Tahlequah website. I don't know how I could do it without being able to, like, she was asking about mobile homes. So I got on search. I put mobile homes up, no matches. Manufactured homes, put up manufactured. Put in 21 results of lines that say manufactured homes. And then I found that section.
Literally the next day that one does.
It's just a great tool. It sounds a little like
ordinance.
Good job, guys.
Hey, thanks for
We
this.
like broke you good, huh? Right here, I was ready to jump up. If you would have done your paper.
It reminds me of Office Space. Office Space.
I'm not putting my paper.
That was scary.
Oh, please. Let me get my violin.
That's a form I never want to see again. You're like mean mugging me, man. I know. I feel like we need to have some telepathic moments that's not happening. Hey, Clint, would you make sure you don't run over my dog going down my road that fast? Yeah. I told Justin Clint about ran over your kid.
It's not true. I came to a stop.
I know. Just kidding.
We
actually have a pretty slow road. Yeah.
You had too many kids with you.
Yeah, those are the kids across the
neighborhood.
street. Yeah. Yeah, they're actually really not. There's 4 kids
They're
over there.
playing all the time, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
They're
And they have
active.
chickens in their backyard, so they bring us fresh eggs.
I have chickens now too.
Do you? The older boy, he's the one that really, he's 13. And he got a new rooster. And he's like, Miss Harris, I got a new rooster and it's not whatever brand, I don't know. And he's like, it kind of crows. If you hear it, you let me know. I told Dad I'd be willing to kill it.
Well, I don't have any
Oh my
roosters.
gosh. He has 2 roosters now.
Oh, really? That will make them crow more.
Yes,
They
that's
can
what
keep crowing.
his dad warned him of that. He's like, I know my new rooster may not make it.
I might have to take his new rooster.
But he has
I
a
don't have
rooster. His old rooster is some breed
Special
that
breed.
doesn't crow.
Oh, really?
It crows, but not with like projection.
See, I'm doing bantams.
That's what they have.
Okay.
I don't know what the rooster is, but yeah.
But I have 7 hens.
I have 2 dogs with really short legs, as you saw. But since we've moved to town and we go walking almost every night, our corgi was as wide as he was tall, and he's lost probably 15 pounds or so. I mean, I don't really know dog pounds, but
Need to lose 15.
yeah, me too.
3 times 2. That was,
Yeah, I'm talking about. This week and a half.
Except Brandon's
Yeah.
at it.
Graduated high school.
It's not for sale.
Yeah.
in
Which is not what I was saying.
100, and obviously,
He said yes, I know.
Oh, wow.
Never for sale.
Wow, you were
That's 100
skinny
cents.
little.
I know.
That was like seventh grade.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I read was.
Well, I'm gonna start. Do you walk Malik to school? I'm gonna start walking Wesley to school. Yeah, I'm going to.
So is Dan Burke.